As we're kind of barely getting out of the doldrums of the NFL offseason, you start to see some insane headlines. For this week, it was Sean Payton. Sean Payton, normally a pretty chill guy, has just started taking pot shots out of nowhere. It's one of those things where you wonder why he even would have said some of the stuff he said. It's completely lambasting another coach when he had really no motivation to, and he does not hold back. What Payton said a few days ago was he was referring to Nathaniel Hackett and the 2022 Denver Broncos, obviously a team that fell well below expectations, called it one of the worst coaching jobs in the history of the NFL, and said everything he heard about last season, we're doing the opposite. He also added, it doesn't happen often where an NFL team or organization gets embarrassed, and that happens here. Part of it was their own fault relative to spending so much, I assume he says fucking time, trying to win the offseason, the PR, the pomp and circumstance, marching people around and all this stuff. We're not doing any of that. So, I don't know what you think about this, Simon. It's one of those things where I'm like, I agree, but why would you say that?
Yeah. Well, I think the entire idea, and the funny thing is, like, I can see why he did it. You know what I mean? Because I think one thing that he's definitely trying to do is he's trying to take the blame off of us, which is the immediate thing that comes to mind. I think he's trying to, because when you think about last season, I remember during the season scrolling through TikTok, and there was a guy who was doing a series on how long it would take for Russ to throw the same amount of touchdowns as he has bathrooms in his house. And I'm not kidding. And it was one of the best things on TikTok, and I loved every second of it. But to that point, you can definitely see that the blame was definitely a lot of on Russ. Which, whether that's fame or... whether that's fair or not, we'll have to see. We'll probably never know. But obviously next season we'll have to see whether Russ can bounce back or not under a new coach. But from what we did see, I don't know. I'll let you take it off here. My brain's cramping, I think.
No, I do think you make a good point, though. Because I didn't really see that angle of it. It definitely makes sense of him trying to take the weight off Russ, because Russ got lambasted last year. And as much as a Seahawks fan, with how he ended his time here in Seattle, as much as you want to kind of like give into that, I still really like Russ as a player and a person, and I think he got too much of a bad rap last year. I do think I'd agree with Nathaniel Hackett, with Sean Payton, in that a lot of it was coaching, a lot of it was injuries.
But to my point, I don't actually think he's saying these things because he believes it. I think he's saying it just because, even if it becomes a headline and everybody gets mad at him for yelling at somebody, for yelling at a coach who's already out of the league and all these different things.
He's not out of the league, though.
Is he not? Wait, where'd he go? Am I dumb? Is he in the... Oh, he's with the Jets again.
Why do you think Aaron Rodgers is mad about this?
Yeah, okay, that's my bad. Yeah. Anyway, I'm not having a good start to the segment. Anyway, I think it's more just trying to put the blame in somebody else's hands as much as possible, which, on that part, I actually agree with what he's doing here. Whether he believes it or not, he's choosing to make a statement as to which side of the argument he falls on, to show that he already is bought in on Russ making a comeback. He fully believes that Russ will return to the player he was before Denver, which I think as a coach is a good thing to do. Did he go too far with it? Absolutely. I think that's the thing that you need to... I think that's the biggest thing about this. He absolutely took Hackett to town. He ripped him to shreds. And I don't think you need to do that. I think it would have been as simple as making the kind of... And I think there's a lot of coaches in a lot of sports who are really good at this. It's where instead of doing what Hackett did, where he went on a long he said a lot of different things, like everything I heard about last season, we're doing the opposite. That's one of those comments. I think if he had left it at that, perfect. Because everybody knows what he means. Everybody knows, you don't need to emphasize anything, right? But he continued to go on about how the team got embarrassed, worst coaching job ever, yada, yada, yada. Too much. You said too much. Like, you're at that point, you went from taking the weight off of your quarterback to just ripping a guy to shreds.
Yeah, I think. Okay, I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here, Simon.
Okay.
I don't think he would have said all of that if he didn't believe it. This sounds like, yeah, sure, some of it is going to be sticking up from his quarterback, but that implies that some of this is planned, and this does not sound like the comments of a man who has planned them out beforehand. This says that he's just saying what he's feeling.
But what?
And what we saw from Nathaniel Hackett, like, it all tracks. Like, this is where, again, I say I completely agree that it's one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history.
He just shouldn't be the one to say it.
Yeah. No, like, I agree with. But, like, the sentiment I agree with so much because, like, you think back to, I think one of the funniest videos from last season is the Manning cast with that Broncos-Seahawks game when Hackett, complete idiot, you've got a minute
couldn't
left
call a timeout.
couldn't call a timeout. From, like, the Seahawks 40. If they call a timeout, they win that game because they're going to get farther down the field and kick a better field goal. And it's the video of Peyton Manning that's counting up how many timeouts he's calling. I think Peyton Manning calls 62 timeouts before the Broncos call one.
You actually remember that.
Gonna call a timeout here, E. Gonna call it, because I watched it yesterday because I think it's really
funny.
Oh, okay. But I, as a Seahawks fan, I watch that every day. But
okay. Fair.
I think I don't know. I do think he's speaking from the heart there. And again, like, I do think part of it is defending his quarterback, but I wouldn't be surprised if he was just hearing stories about what happened last year. And because it's Sean Payton, he knows what he's doing. If he was just so, like, flabbergasted by it all that he just needed to get it out somehow.
Yep.
And so, like, that...
I personally think that there is not a single person in the room who dislikes that Sean Payton did all this. I think that this is exactly what the room needed to hear. I just think with what A-Rod is kind of like, if we go on and move over to that side of things, where he just more just talks about how it's very surprising for a coach to do that to another coach. That's one of the things that A-Rod said. That's the sentiment that I more agree with. But if Sean Payton's goal was to try and take the blame off of his team and his quarterback, I think he probably killed it. Like, for what his goal was to do by making those comments, he probably he did everything that he wanted to do. So I'm sure Sean Payton's not mad about it. And probably the reason he didn't make a comment on it either. He just didn't feel that. There's no point in continuing the war. He started it. He wanted to start a little bit of fire. Let it end there. I think that's kind of the perspective if you're looking at Sean Payton's perspective.
I do think that the one thing that's, like you say, Sean Payton has no regrets. I don't think he does now. But the one thing that I would be like, why is he doing this? Would be, this sets him up so poorly if the Broncos do badly. Then
true.
If he's calling this one of the worst coaching jobs in NFL history,
I don't think
he comes out with the same record. Like, come on.
Can I just say though? You gotta bet on yourself. To that standpoint, you gotta bet on yourself in everything.
Yeah. Maybe Sean Payton, he's coming out of, like, retirement or whatever, his mini-retirement. He's just got nothing left to lose at this point where he's just like, screw it, I can say whatever I want. But it looks so bad if the Broncos fail. Like, this is going to be, like, everywhere after the season if the Broncos, like, are...
If Russ throws, like, only, 16 touchdowns again or whatever he threw.
Yeah. If the Broncos' offense is as bad as it was last year, yeah.
I think it'll be... I don't think that's going to happen.
Neither do I. I think the Broncos will actually be good this year.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I totally agree. I think that the funny thing is, I kind of agree with all the perspectives here because I think Payton went too far. I don't think he needed to say all the things he said, but I also think that he totally did that on purpose to the point of that he wanted to really he wanted to remove the blame off the players and Russ. I feel like I've already touched on that, but and then we can move on to the Jets' perspective and Hackett and Rodgers and that whole side of things. I don't know. I also agree that he probably went too far. So I don't blame Rodgers and Hackett for being mad about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess... it's not like I guess good for A-Rod for standing up for his coach.
Yeah.
I don't really care to be quite honest about what Aaron Rodgers says.
Okay, fair.
I guess part of the reason that he's also standing up for it is because there's like Payton had some jabs at the Jets too. Payton said that their Jets are infatuated with the pomp and circumstance of their offseason, that they were a dream team doomed to fail. That's
Payton,
like
Payton apologized.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. I don't know if
I
you
didn't
saw
know
that.
No, I didn't see that. Oh, never mind. Yeah. I think that's a fake apology, but whatever.
I do too.
Yeah.
I think he stands behind every word of what he said.
I didn't read that part.
Honestly, I would too, because I would not be shocked if he is legitimately that like surprised at how badly it was handled, because he's he's coming into this room for the first time and hearing all this.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, when you're walking into a locker room that had such a bad year, this is what you got to do. You got to light a fire under these players' ass to go, like, you need to put the blame somewhere and let these players actually buy in, all right? Because think about it, if Hackett was back here this year, this would be another crap year because all the players would think it was their fault, right?
Yeah.
So on that, like, you got to put the blame somewhere, right? Like, you don't want to play the blame game, but you got to put it somewhere, and that's what Payton's doing by making those comments, and that's something that I completely agree with. Like, whether you're saying he believes it, I think I'm starting to lean that direction after your argument. I think that it was a pretty emotional statement, so you're probably right. But
yeah,
I think he went into that interview having an idea, you know what I mean, of what he wanted to get out there, is more what I mean.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know. I honestly, my biggest like takeaway is I'm so happy that he said this. It just gives you something to talk about. But it's like it's very refreshing to see a coach this like unfiltered. Like it's cool. It makes me so happy to just have him like not care what anybody says. I mean, I guess he did a little bit because he apologized, but like sure. It's cool. It hurts people's feelings in the Jets, but I don't care about Rodgers or Hackett. He's being honest, and I think his remarks are true, so I don't think he should be afraid of saying that. Although I do think I honestly love Robert Saleh's response to this. I don't know if you saw that.
Where was it?
Said,
I just found it.
I'm not going to acknowledge Sean. He's been in the league for a while, so he can say whatever the hell he wants. As far as what I have going on here, I kind of live by the saying, if you ain't got no haters, you ain't poppin', so hate away. I love that. Honestly, like that's how you respond to this. Like that's so much better than A-Rod being like, "Oh, he's such a great coach, such a great family man. I don't really care." Like the idea of just being like, he can say whatever he wants. I don't care. Like that's so much better. That's so much better. It insulates you from a lot of that potential criticism, right? Like it's
just throw honestly,
like it's nothing.
I feel like that's I've been watching a lot of, this has been my TikTok feed for the last like week or two. That's like the Ted Lasso response to this kind of thing. Yeah. Just give like a funny quote and move on.
Yeah.
Like, and I appreciate that.
Bring up Ted Lasso. I'm gonna shout out. Maybe I'll end the segment with a Ted Lasso shout out. That just finished the final season. Oh my god, it's so good. If you haven't watched the full show, like, you need to watch it. I actually haven't. I've been watching tons and tons of clips of it, and now I really want to. It's so good. It's like Ted Lasso is one of my favorite characters in any TV show ever. The sports stuff in it is awesome. Even it's soccer, and I am very invested, and when I'm normally not. And like the emotional core of it too is like awesome. I will not be ashamed to say that I shed a few tears in that last episode. Like, it is perfect. It is perfect TV. Watch it. Apple TV sucks, but it's worth getting Apple TV just for that. It's such a good show.
Well, we can end there.
Yeah. The perfect end to a segment about a different sport.
Damn right. That's how we do it here.